Simply because you're not, or simply because you're a finalist doesn't necessarily mean that you're guaranteed a position.
Really reach out to those agencies that you're passionate about.
I think location was something key.
You've really got to get after it.
Well, the vast bulk of the people who get positions get them within 4 to 6 months of the time that they're actually named finalists.
You have to realize that out here we're dealing with a lot of different priorities. It's not that the PMF isn't important, it's one important priority among many. So HR processes can take some time, managers can take some time to evaluate their needs. If you look at the way the economy is these days, there's a lot of pressure for federal managers to invest their dollars wisely, especially in people. And so all those things, plus the unemployment sort of situation, lend themselves to a market in which managers can be very choosy. They can be very discerning, and they can allow the process to take its time.
If I were a PMF who'd become a finalist, I would go looking for the agency that I was most interested in, and I might, send some emails, make some phone calls, and go talk to folks and say, hey, I'm a PMF, I've got a background in your topic area, I'm really interested in hearing a little bit more about what you're doing and seeing if you have any positions or vacancies open, because if people have a vacancy, they can sort of often, I think, put a PMF in it relatively easily, even if they didn't participate in the job fair.
We do take people that reach out to us, as well as we search the resume database and look for people that we think are a good match with our mission, as well as the jobs that we have available.
We will interview PMF finalists, and then we will, and let's say that's on the first day. And then by the second day, we are making job offers, and we are, even by the end of the first day, we are making job offers, and we tell the PMFs that we want them to make a decision by, noon tomorrow. So we try to move it rapidly along.
Once they're finalists, frankly, being in Washington, D.C. is an advantage, I think, for getting PMF positions. That's not necessarily something that people outside of D.C. want to hear. And I wouldn't get that discouraged if you're outside of D.C. About getting a PMF slot when you're a finalist. But being in D.C., there's no question that is an advantage.
The other thing I'm really a big advocate for is for people to be the stewards of their own career. And this is very difficult to do when you're not at school here in Washington, is call hiring managers. There's a lot of jobs out there that you may not be aware of. But you have to be kind of an intrepid job seeker and get after it. Otherwise, you're never going to hear about them. Whereas I think if you go to a school at one of our outstanding local institutions, you just kind of have home court advantage. It's easier to not necessarily walk down Pennsylvania Avenue and knock on doors, but you're just more tuned into it. So especially if you're applying from a school not in the D.C. region.
Part of the issue that I have found is students tend to focus on particular types of agencies. What we like to call the sexy agencies, FBI, CIA, State Department, and they limit themselves, and therefore everybody is applying for those types of positions. They have a harder time getting interviews.
It's important to remain open-minded, to talk to a lot of people, to ask about, well, what is this particular position like on a day-to-day basis? Or what is the mission of your organization? Or what's the culture in terms of, if I were working there every day, what would the experience be like? Those sorts of questions, I think, are more important than, working in a specific tiny little policy area that you might have as your sort of dream job.
So a lot of people, I'd say probably half the finalists who are going to become fellows have positions nailed down by, say, June 1 or July 1. But we have had finalists, we had 3 finalists from 2011 who got positions in 2012 within 2 weeks of the deadline of their year being up. So what I would say to finalists is don't give up, unless you've gotten another offer outside of government somewhere, and keep pushing that whole time, and positions can emerge even very late in that year-long window that you've got.
To a finalist who has a little bit of time between being named a finalist and getting a position, I would say continue to groom your skill set, especially after you've seen some of the jobs that are out there that maybe you weren't selected for. I would also say be patient, be persistent, but don't be annoying. These are humans on the other end of these emails, and if you're sending 15 in a day, they're going to make note of that. I would also say network. Networking is the best thing you can do. PMFs have the magical ability of being able to be hired on the spot, which is really rare in federal agencies and saves federal agencies a lot of time in hiring. And so if you network and you find someone who's excited about your skill set, it's much easier for them to bring you into a job.
You have to think outside of the normal points of contact. In many cases, you're going to contact the hiring manager or the PMF coordinator directly. However, that's not to say that you can't contact somebody else within the agency with whom you're interested in working. So, another person who's maybe even never thought about hosting a PMF could potentially offer you a job when they hear about the benefits, for example, the non-competitive placement and things like that. And then you can follow up with the PMF coordinator to say, hey, I found this job. I found this person who's interested in hiring me. So it's a little bit of a non-traditional way of thinking about it, not limiting yourself to just what's on the PPS website.